What if the end of our civilization didn't look like panic or chaos? What if it looked normal? What if people kept going to work, kept paying bills, kept streaming shows at night, while something deeper was quietly coming apart underneath everything? That's how most civilizations end. Not suddenly, not loudly, but slowly. So slowly that the people living through it don't recognize what's happening. Ancient Rome didn't fall in one day. There was no dramatic countdown. No single battle that ended everything. Romans still held festivals. Markets still opened. Children learned to read, but year by year, things got harder. Roads weren't repaired as quickly. Trade routes became unsafe. Education weakened. Skilled workers became fewer. And slowly, the systems that held daily life together began to dissolve. The Mayan civilization didn't collapse in a single drought or famine. It took generations of growing strain. Fields produced less food, conflicts increased, people moved away from the great cities. From the inside, it probably didn't feel like collapse. It just felt like the way things are now. The people weren't careless or foolish. They were simply living inside a process too slow to see. That's the kind of collapse humans are most at risk of today. A quiet one. A gentle unraveling. A slow shift toward a world that feels more fragile, more tiring, more unstable, while still looking mostly the same on the surface. And if we don't notice slow decline, we can't respond to it. So let's talk about how collapse actually works. Civilization isn't one thing. It's a giant web of systems all connected to each other. Roads support trade. Trade supports cities. Cities support schools. Schools support knowledge. Knowledge supports technology. Technology supports food production. Food production supports life. Every part depends on every other part, and every part needs care, maintenance, repair. If you own a house, you know that ignoring a small leak doesn't just leave things as they are. The leak spreads, the wood rots, mold grows, a small issue becomes a big one, and eventually the repair becomes much more expensive than it would have been at the start. Civilizations work exactly like that. They need constant energy to stay functioning. Scientists describe this universal tendency for things to fall apart as entropy. But you don't need the scientific definition to get the idea. You've lived it. You've seen things decay when effort stops. A city becomes run down if no one maintains it. A bridge weakens if no one inspects it. A relationship grows distant if no one reaches out. Everything requires care. Civilization isn't a permanent structure. It's something we're building and rebuilding every day. The moment we stop, decline begins. But here's what makes it sneaky. Decline is slow at first. A school loses one good teacher. A hospital closes one wing. A power grid becomes slightly less reliable. A water system needs repair but gets postponed another year. None of these changes feels like the end of anything. They feel like simple inconveniences, things we just have to live with. But each small decline adds weight to the system. A system already stretched. And once enough small cracks form, one larger shock becomes enough to break things in a way we can't ignore. That's when collapse becomes visible. But by then, the real collapse has already happened. It happened quietly years before, in the small things everyone decided didn't matter. But there's something even more fragile than infrastructure: trust. Civilization runs on trust. People trust that money will still have value tomorrow. They trust that laws will be applied. They trust that hospitals will help. They trust that schools will teach. They trust that other people are trying, in general, to make society work. When trust is strong, cooperation is easy. People coordinate without needing to be forced. Progress feels natural, but trust almost never breaks in one single moment. It breaks slowly, bit by bit. A government lies and people stop believing official information. A company cuts corners and safety weakens. A news source exaggerates and panic spreads. People start to feel like the system is no longer on their side. They turn inward. They look out for themselves and the people closest to them. They stop believing in the idea of the common good. The community becomes smaller. The circle of concern shrinks. Neighbours become strangers. Strangers become suspects. The sense of us weakens. And when trust declines, everything else gets harder. Suddenly, nothing feels dependable. Everyone assumes someone else is cheating, lying, or getting more than they deserve. People stop cooperating. And without cooperation, society doesn't function, even if the buildings are still standing, even if the lights are still on. A civilization can be physically intact but socially hollow. And once trust weakens enough, decline accelerates. Now the economy. This is where slow collapse can hide best, because numbers can look good even when real conditions get worse. A country can show economic growth while its infrastructure crumbles. A company can increase profits by cutting safety and maintenance. A city can build new buildings while letting its water system decay. The surface can look healthy while the foundation rots. This is called hidden fragility. Everything looks stable until the moment it doesn't. Think of a tree that looks strong from the outside but is hollow inside. One strong wind and it breaks. Civilizations often avoid repairing foundations because it's expensive and uncomfortable. So instead, they find short-term fixes. They borrow money. They overuse resources. They stretch institutions thinner. They tell themselves things are fine. For a while they are, and then one day they're not. But the final break never feels sudden if you look back at the trend. It feels inevitable. And yet, while living through it, people feel confused. They say, how did this happen so fast, even though it didn't happen fast at all? The truth is, we're not very good at noticing slow change. Our brains are built to detect danger that appears quickly, not danger that grows gradually. If something gets worse slowly enough, we don't treat it as a threat. We just adapt. We adapt to shorter attention spans. We adapt to weaker institutions. We adapt to more stress. We adapt to less community. We adapt to lower expectations. And before we know it, we've forgotten how things used to feel. We think the way things are now is normal. And that's how collapse hides. Not in disaster, not in flames, in forgetting. Forgetting what stability felt like and forgetting what trust felt like. Forgetting that things weren't always this exhausting. But here's the hopeful part. If collapse can happen slowly, recovery can happen slowly too. Just like decline begins with small choices, renewal begins with small choices as well. Someone decides to repair instead of replace. Someone starts teaching old skills. A community forms a group to solve one shared problem. People begin talking again across lines of difference. They rebuild trust in small circles. Those circles connect, and cooperation grows again. Civilizations have recovered before, knowledge has been rebuilt, systems have been redesigned, new cultures have grown from the remains of old ones. Collapse is not the end of the story, it's a turning point. The key is noticing the direction we're moving while we still have time to turn. Not panicking, not denying, just paying attention and choosing to care. Civilization isn't saved by heroes. It's saved by people deciding that what we share is worth holding up. Not all at once, not in a dramatic moment, but slowly, steadily at the same way it can fall. The future isn't written. Collapse is possible. Renewal is also possible. The path we take depends on whether we notice the slow changes happening right now and whether we decide they matter. Because the end of civilization doesn't feel like the end. And the saving of civilization won't feel like a grand beginning. It'll feel like a quiet return to caring, to maintaining, to remembering who we are and acting like it matters. How close to the end of civilization as we know it do you think we are? Comment your thoughts below and don't forget to like and subscribe while you're there.